Hey, how's it going? My name's Amir. I am a part of the Nervos Foundation on the business development team. Um, I am going to talk to you today about trading tokens. This is going to be an introduction to centralized exchanges, decentralized exchanges, NFT marketplaces, and really going over the benefits of mainly the latter of the two, decentralized exchanges and NFT marketplaces. They both offer new, innovative ways to how we approach products and also trading cryptocurrencies. But overall, all three do provide ways to have access to different tokens within the crypto space. So, let's just kind of give a brief rundown of marketplaces themselves. Marketplaces are the core location of buying, selling, or trading a variety of different tokens from a multitude of different chains. For the most part, there are some decentralized exchanges that do allow for trading cross chain, but mainly centralized exchanges are ways to have more exposure to different tokens on different blockchains. And a lot of NFT marketplaces are actually starting to support multiple different blockchains as well. But overall, these are, the backbones to getting exposure in the blockchain space. Even though one of the core ideas is self custody and being able to send tokens peer to peer, marketplaces pretty much allow for the opportunity for users to come to one location and exchange different tokens for other tokens or to buy and sell different digital assets. It just allows for a greater ease of the user experience when it comes to using tokens and using different protocols on the blockchain itself. So there's mainly for cryptocurrencies two different types of exchanges. There are centralized exchanges, which have been around much longer. Some of the first cropped up in the mid to really the late 2000s or tens, I guess some of us might say. But they've been around for a while. That's been the most used and most common method of getting exposure to different tokens. And then we have decentralized exchanges, which have pretty much come about in the past couple of years. I would say 2017. We saw one of the first decentralized exchanges come about. I believe it was Balancer, which is still active and running today. And then for NFT marketplaces, which also have had a recent entry for users to have access to. But there's a plethora of different marketplaces. It's questionable whether calling them centralized, though most of the method of using the NFT marketplaces are actually decentralized in nature. So it's a no weird middle ground. There are some that are decentralized as well, but mainly central locations that, can be very much controlled by the platform, if you will. But we'll touch that in just a moment. So, what are centralized exchanges? Centralized exchange, or CEX, as some people say, is a third-party platform that privately manages. It's privately managed by a central organization and facilitates transactions of different cryptocurrency assets between buyers and sellers. A few examples of this, and probably the most prominent, are Coinbase, Binance, Gemini, a few others I can think on the top of my head. KuCoin is fairly popular internationally. What's another one? Kraken is a very popular one. There's a handful. They're all in competition with one another. FTX is one that's come up in the past few years and is extremely popular. But they all fairly for the most part, operate similarly. But this is where users are going to be able to buy, sell, or trade their currencies. It's custodial in nature, like I mentioned. The third party pretty much holds your assets in digital wallets for the users themselves, and then while also allowing for the authentication of those transactions centrally. CEXs generally charge trading fees, which is one of the caveats to using these exchanges, because they can be fairly high depending on which one you're using or if they have any kind of incentive structure. But you can mainly purchase cryptocurrencies with fiat or with other trading pairs, which is a unique feature. You aren't able to do that on DEXs. Some NFT marketplaces also allow for this, but they're able to facilitate payments from commercial banks through direct transfers or payment with credit cards. CEXs also work as a central authority to ensure the transactions on the platform are not malicious, illegal. There's no money laundering, which is something that always comes up in crypto. And, being that it's centralized, there should be improved security for cryptocurrencies. It hopefully improves the user experience, which is also questionable at times. But the idea is it's reliable, it's easy for users to engage with, and they're able to then use products and have exposure to different tokens. This is an example of one exchange, Binance. You're able to do what they call spot trading, which is simply just, you set a price for something you want to buy it at. You can set the price that you want to sell at. And then mainly the big thing is this order book right here. The order book itself allows for you to see all the different transactions that are happening. You're able to see what people are wanting to sell token at, what they're willing to buy it at. This is definitely more so geared towards a pro trader, someone who probably has some experience in traditional finance, or just simply is a user in the crypto space for a number of years. But it does allow a lot of functionality for users to, be able to kind of zero in on how they want to trade. But also a lot of the pro platforms have a higher number of different token pairings as well. Next slide, if I can get to it. There we go. And then this is an example of Coinbase. Coinbase is very much geared towards user-friendly, easier experience. The functionality, especially on the mobile side, is extremely simple. You have your token listings, you're able to see a portfolio balance. They have some form of looking at the indicators of price for each currency, but the purpose of using the platform is fairly simple. You just hit trade. You're able to then look at what you're buying it at. You have your payment method, which is listed here. Like I mentioned, you're able to utilize a bank to facilitate, or even Apple Pay. If you have it on mobile, it lists the fee and then what it all costs in total. And that experience is just much easier than a Binance, or Coinbase actually has a pro version of their platform, but again, users are able to get exposure to these tokens through a fairly easy platform or user-friendly experience. They can take away all of the other complications of, going through the process of listing and, setting a price and, different types of orders in the order book, and just clearly states, here's a purchase that you can make. This is the token price. This is what you're going to buy it or sell it at. And you're also able to pretty easily convert one token to another that's listed. You aren't working with traditional pairing as you would with Binance. So how does it work? They're a third-party platform that allows users to deposit their tokens to the wallets, like I mentioned before, and then they're given custody. The exchange has pairs typically, and like I mentioned with Binance, they will list something as, for example, BTC or USD, BTC with USD, which simply means your trading pair is going to be if I want to buy Bitcoin for 30K. And I have $30,000. I set that at a list, and then there's someone on the other side of the trade who says, I want to list this at 30K, and the transaction is then facilitated algorithmically through the exchange itself. So it can happen pretty fast depending on what you're setting it at, but it only trades within those pairs, which is very different than Coinbase or a few of the other newer platforms that have allowed users to begin trading. And then again, they're completed through order books. Oops, sorry. They're completely through order books, as I mentioned on the previous page. And, one of the key components on what happens when they're taking custody of these funds, the SEC is essentially issuing a corresponding amount of IOUs, as you would say, and giving credit to these users. These IOUs are credits are tracked by the SEC whenever transactions are being performed, and it will convert them to actual fiat currency or vice versa. And if you're exchanging a fiat, you're then able to withdraw to your bank, which is another advantage of using centralized exchanges. And this is done through the maintenance of the order book that is, records those buy and sells, the buy and sell options on the centralized exchanges. And the prices are all aggregated. That's how you're able to, the exchanges are able to make the matches and calculate and execute the trades between the users. And the ability to transact with these different platforms is much higher than it would be with decentralized exchange. NFTs don't really fit into this discussion necessarily, but this is going to be what is a part of the leverage of using a centralized exchange. Let's keep moving. 1 second. Oh, I think I lost my place. Here we go. What are the limitations of using a centralized exchange? As I mentioned before, high fees is a large one. No transparency, just because these entities, they are not, they don't have to give information about what's happening on the back end to their user base. Everything can be covered, and essentially any sort of activity that's happening on the back end is not visible to any users. There's obviously custodial risks of assets are really well known. Example of this was there was this exchange called Mt. Gox. I believe it was 2014. I could be very much wrong, but essentially Mt. Gox was a fairly popular exchange, and suddenly the owner of Mt. Gox essentially, for a common term, rug pulled the user base. All of the Bitcoin that was in custody on Mt. Gox, he was able to send it to another wallet, simply took all the users' funds, and could do that because the tokens for the trading that would happen on Mt. Gox were stored on their servers and wallets, or their wallets, excuse me. So with that, you do have this risk where you're trusting this platform to essentially be able to allow you to have these transactions happen, but also keep your funds safe and not just take them away from you. But despite ensuring the stability and convenience of these transactions, in regards to high fees, the percentage that's being taken can add up, especially if you're a higher volume trader. Those things can definitely deter you from wanting to use the platform, or is also just a disadvantage to your margins. And this is something that is pretty common throughout centralized exchanges overall, whether it is you're a pro trader or you're using a Coinbase or Gemini. Fees matter, especially when you're looking at the investment side of things. And then, again, the internal operations aspect of it, it just leaves opportunity, as it does for the custodial risk, to, there could be malicious price manipulation. There could be, a community of users that are, not going to be affected by this entity, which, insider trading essentially can be a problem, is a problem to a degree. And there's a lot of risk that, the exchange could essentially, again, freeze your funds. They can block them, keep you from having any access whatsoever. So those are limitations, and as I'll explain, with decentralized exchanges, these risks are essentially the focus of benefiting the users. So let's move right to decentralized exchanges. A decentralized exchange, or DEX, is a place where people can go to trade cryptocurrencies without an intermediary or essentially a third party. Examples of these types of DEXs: Uniswap, SushiSwap, Curve, Balancer, which I mentioned before, one of the earliest ones. Uniswap definitely is the most popular out of all the DEXs that people use. But there are a plethora of different DEXs that either are kind of forks, essentially, of Uniswap, or they attempt to tackle some other specific problem within DeFi that would benefit users, whether it's aggregating from different exchanges, whether it's protecting users from what is known as MEV, minimal. What is it? Minimize minimal extractable value. I believe that's what it is. But MEV basically are bots that will sandwich your transactions, basically benefiting the miners, and they essentially are able to extract value from that. Can be a problem as a user, but again, different exchanges are going after different problems as the space continues to grow. And one of the key things about DEX is, people are able to trade on a 24/7 basis. Very similar to centralized exchanges to a degree, but these DEXs are all secured by blockchain. And, this allows users to be able to use them permissionlessly and directly with one another. So in a lot of ways, it is peer-to-peer. And it's just being facilitated by smart contracts. And with that, you're able to, usurp needing a centralized entity to handle those transactions. And, again, they're really new. It has not been around for a while. And correct me, actually, it's not Balancer, it's Bancor. That was one of the first DEXs to come about. So scratch that out of your notes and put Bancor there. And yeah, I think let's go to the next slide. If my mouse can come back. All right, so this is an example of a typical DEX interface. Uniswap is the most popular. This is a V2, which it actually is on V3. which is even much more user friendly, I would say, than this. But the process of using this would be, you simply connect your wallet, and it gives access to the protocol to see what tokens you have for trading. And then from there, you're able to then select what you want to trade, select the token. It'll ask to sign for allowing for those pairs to happen. And then from there, you confirm the transaction that you're willing to go forward with. And from there, you commit it to a trade, and you wait for it to go through on chain, and that's really it. It's really simple. It's much easier than I think some have some here, just simply because I think there is a lot of difficulty associated with using DEXs or DeFi products as a whole. But the interface is much more simple than using a Binance per se. Any other information that you're needing for your trade, you can access somewhere else. But to simply do the trade with ease, you can come to a Uniswap and be able to do that. So yeah, let's go over how DEXs work. And the key component to how they work is smart contracts, which are automatically executed protocols. And these facilitate the trading between individuals, but they don't take control of your coins. So again, you are in custody of your tokens at all time. They are simply connecting two endpoints, essentially, from one user to another to allow for this transaction to happen. And they can be handled in a few different ways. There's an on-chain order book, which every transaction is written on the blockchain. That's not just an actual purchase, but also a request to purchase or cancel the order. It's the ultimate in decentralization, but the need to put everything on blockchain can be very expensive and very slow compared to centralized exchanges. And DEX users typically are required to pay two types of fee. The network fee, which is not associated with the platform or protocol whatsoever, and then trading fees, which are significantly lower than they would be on most centralized exchanges. And again, the network fee, let's say, for example, with Ethereum or on Nervos Layer 2, again, that would just be the gas cost to pay the miners to allow for the transactions to happen. And the fees are then collected by the underlying protocol, its liquidity providers, LPs, token holders, or a combination of different entities that are specified by the design of the protocol. The vision of many DEXs is to be permissionless, accessible, end-to-end, on-chain, and with no central point of failure, and decentralized ownership across a community of distributed stakeholders. This basically just means they want to allow users and community to be able to have some level of ownership. A lot of them actually have DAOs that, token holders of the platform are able to join in governance, voting for different tokens to be added, or different pairings, or any other features that a protocol is wanting to add. This dramatically changes how a user would interact with a product like this. With centralized exchanges, you're just simply business to the consumer, whereas you have much more involvement with DEXs and a lot of DeFi protocols as well. And then lastly, the last one, automated market maker, which Uniswap was one of the first, or one of the leaders rather, in kind of pushing this style. But automated market makers are AMMs, forego order books completely. With order books, you have Chainlink tokens or want to buy on Compound, you need someone with Compound who wants Chainlink and is willing to trade at an agreed upon price. Whereas AMMs remove counterparties completely, introduce algorithms to set the price, and then let you trade Chainlink for Compound regardless whether there's someone on the other end of the trade, or to facilitate this, they use liquidity pools, which is much different, obviously, than how LPs would work on most exchanges. But these liquidity pools essentially essentially pay users to keep some of their funds on the platform to allow for the trading to happen. So if you're a smart user, you're submitting some funds to a popular pair, you actually are receiving a percentage of the trading volume as a liquidity provider for these pools. So with that, individual users play a key role in facilitating all of this. But what are the risks of DEXs? Not everything's perfect. It's still an emergent space. I'm sure we've all heard of different protocols having difficulties and some security issues in the DeFi space. But what are these risks ultimately? They're going to come down to three things: volatility, front running, rug pulls. These are probably the biggest ones outside of a few others that are a little bit more confusing and a little bit more in depth. But for the most part, at least when it comes to the centralized exchanges, there hasn't been too many issues with how they operate or with security risks. But these are all going to be there. But using decentralized exchanges for trading and LPing comes with risks. Accordingly, you should only attempt to use a DEX if you've researched some of these first. And some of these key issues when it comes to volatility, cryptocurrency prices can swing wildly in rapid fashion. This can lead to considerable slippage for traders and a permanent loss for the liquidity providers. And LP just means you're temporarily losing money. And if trading volume, kind of levels out and pairs, the pool kind of returns to a marginally similar state, then, those funds can be recovered. But essentially a permanent loss is if any of that happens and the slippage goes up and those funds have been drained from the LP, essentially you're not going to recover those funds whatsoever. With front running, this involves using advanced knowledge of another's entity's pending trade and take advantage of that trade. Again, this is kind of where MEV I mentioned before comes in. This happened plenty in mainstream finance, and it can happen in DeFi too. But if someone observes the blockchain and tries to beat you to the punch on a trade, they will utilize these bots to do just that. And MEV guys that are in the space, they definitely have made a good amount of money utilizing these methods. And then lastly, rug pulls, which rug pulls span a lot of different avenues and how you would describe it. But essentially, the real concern is with something like smaller liquidity pools. They're hardly there's hardly some ubiquitous risk when it comes to DeFi, but still, though the ecosystem has its share of rug pulls, which entails bad actors pumping fake tokens, and their associated liquidity pools only to disappear withdrawing massive amounts of money from those same pools. And then a lot of times, you'll see, if you're very active, I would say, the ways they do it is they will airdrop you a random token with some random name. It shows up because of all the data that's on chain. It'll show up as you have now $10,000 worth of some token, and now that you want to go cash out, you'll go and try to make this trade. Excuse me. But some of them will actually also send you to a fake website where then what happens is you actually sign to allow for them to have access to your wallet, to allow for this trade, and then they drain your wallet as well. This is another way, another type of rug pull that happens. But all in all, there's many that you should look out for. There's a lot of guides online, kind of giving some decent, direction and whatnot to being able to avoid these types of scams. So quick recap. There are a handful of fundamental differences between decentralized crypto exchanges and centralized exchanges. Not least among them, they're operated. DEXs transparently run an open source open source code without intermediaries and are governed by their own respective community and users. In contrast, DEXs run a closed source proprietary code and are administered by their owners, i.e. a company. This is why DEXs are permissionless and DEXs are permissioned. And this is going to be the overall key thing to allow for trading, especially when it comes to regulation and the overall space. And no one is gatekeeping you from having access to these tokens, which is definitely in the vein of what makes blockchain so unique. And moreover, the design is crucial differentiating factor between the two. And sexes rely on exclusively order books, while DEXs have something similar to, for example, the pioneered AMM method for trading, which is probably the top innovations of how DEXs work. And they're designed to be programmable money Legos compared to centralized exchanges. So a lot of these DeFi apps will interact with DEXs themselves, and you have a lot of different ways that users can benefit from these protocols having communication. So let's quickly keep moving. And this is going to be much shorter. NFT Marketplaces. NFT Marketplaces are at the center of all NFT trading in the crypto space. These marketplaces offer users a safe place to buy, sell, trade NFTs with a variety of different mechanisms. You can trade these digital assets almost similarly to how one would trade cryptocurrencies, except I guess one of the best ways I think I could put most marketplaces are like eBay. You own the different assets, you're able to list them. You can buy what's listed from one user's wallet. You can sell your own. You can mint your own. And then from there, you're allowed to do a lot of different trading. And NFTs are powerful because they allowed for these different financial tools to also be embedded to allowing users to have true ownership of the digital assets and be able to allow for anyone to issue, own, and trade them. And it's extremely efficient than most traditional platforms that are out there. It's the same reason why cryptocurrency is used in payments is more sufficient than traditional payments. It's borderless, it's significantly easier to transfer, and this all applies also to NFTs. You don't have to go through and create your own marketplace. You can essentially utilize these marketplaces to go through an onboarding experience and then be able to do the trading and handle it all there. And all the NFT activity is posted, which is also a really key difference to how most art or items or whatnot, digital assets are. It really changes how people interact with digital assets, the data surrounding them, and what kind of opportunities are there for users to become more aware of how their businesses are doing, or what's effectively more popular, where can they put their investment. There's a variety of different data points that users have not really had access to on any kind of other marketplaces selling traditional goods. Oh, and a few examples are OpenSea, Super Rare, Rarible, LooksRare, which LooksRare is very decentralized compared to the others. Yeah, and we'll keep moving. This is an example of NFT Marketplace. If you check on OpenSea, this is probably the most used, or not probably, it is the most used NFT Marketplace overall. You can see things like the total floor value, which that basically means to buy into this collection, the lowest you would have to pay is 14 ETH, which is quite a bit. But and then you can also see, or excuse me, that's wrong. That is the total floor value of all the NFTs. Typically, you would also see volume here. I believe this is an older format for OpenSea. And then you can see the average price. And then from there, it has the information about each token. It shows the rarity, the floor price on these different collections. And you're able to then, also see if a collection is verified, which is incredibly important for traders. And there's a lot of other details that kind of come with being able to use these marketplaces, but they're key to how you are able to get access, or to really take your assets and be able to bring them to an open marketplace. And how do they operate? There's a few features. You're able to do minting. Auctions are another key for this, and they're somewhat decentralized, kind of, meaning you have self-custody of all your assets, but to go on those platforms, you have to essentially lean on this one entity that, for example, OpenSea could disallow support for a certain collection, which means now you can't do the trading there, but you still own the NFT. It hasn't disappeared. It hasn't gone away. They don't own it. It's all yours. So yeah, and this is all upheld by smart contracts as well. And they're designed to support these unique digital assets. It allows users to protect their custody of the NFTs and collectibles on the platform, thus offering security for the creator's work. And then from there, you're able to do these direct transactions with users on blockchain and linking them to, a Web3 supported wallet like MetaMask, which is the most popular, I think, as of right now. And this is how you're going to trade your ERC 721s or ERC 1155s. There's not many others that support different token standards, but when it comes to different blockchains, they all have their own. And OpenSea actually supports several blockchains, so they have different token standards that are associated with each chain. And yeah, it's you're able to list whatever you want, and if you don't like the fees or you're not interested in selling on OpenSea, you don't have to. You basically just take your assets with you, delist off OpenSea, and you can go to Luxware and list there. And typically they have the fees are kind of rough to a degree, dependent on platform, but the idea too is with some marketplaces you're able to incorporate your own royalties if you mint there, but you don't have to mint on OpenSea or whichever platform. You can do that on your own as well through your own smart contracts. So what makes trading NFTs unique? There's an enormous value to be realized in treating a lot of the data that's associated with it, which is one point. But with NFTs, we overcome a lot of technological, regulatory, incentive barriers. They're non-custodial, so you own your assets. Again, the platform does not have them listed there. Your eBay products, to kind of put in a simple term, you aren't beholden to just utilizing a platform. You list it. You don't have to go through too many steps to do just that. But if something were to happen, they can't cut you off from your items. I mean, eBay might be actually more akin to how these marketplaces work, but the overall idea is that you own your assets. This is a key component to anything in blockchain, but definitely to NFTs as well. And it's really easy to do all this. It's easy to use. The security is there since it's all utilized through, or done through smart contracts and on chain. And then because it's on chain, the authenticity, being able to verify that it's a certain collection, that you have this certain transaction with another users, and when it was bought and when it was sold. And a lot of them have links to Etherscan or whatever block explorer that the chain is on, and you're able to then also verify on chain if you want to go a little deeper than just simply the platform itself. And there's risks. There's smart contract risks, which in certain scenarios, hackers can essentially put up malicious contracts that can become a weak point for different users. And if a contract has not been audited, there have been issues in the past with different types of rug pulls in regards to these NFTs. You can also be left with an unfavorable NFT if the project was not my apologies, if the project was not super popular, or the team that built it wanted to extract value from you. And this is left open to a lot of cyber attacks, increased instances of different fake collections, which falls into IP because anyone can mint NFT. I can make a copy or a screenshot of another product and put it on OpenSea, but they can pull it down, but that doesn't stop the issues of these trades. Or again, there are fake stores that get put up where users think they're going to buy an NFT and really they just gave, again, access to their wallet, and all the NFTs get stolen. And this falls in the rug pull scam category. And then intellectual property. Who owns the rights to this thing that has been minted on chain? There's still a lot of gray area. A lot of teams have gone about, whether they try to define where, on different parts of their website or, their white papers, whatever, saying if it's something that, all IP is owned by the team, or a lot of projects, will allow for when the users buy them, they actually own the IP, they can do whatever they want with it. There's some that are CC0, which just means it's open copyright, so any person can utilize those assets and make other products, buy, sell. There's no limitations with that. But IP rights are going to probably continue to come up as things continue in the space. So, in conclusion, I know I've gone over just a little bit in terms of my video, but marketplaces are the veins of blockchain. This is how we are able to. It's another form of being able to have these different types of transactions and exchange hands through users, especially when it comes to decentralized marketplaces, because this removes the need for banks. This removes the need for stock markets. It removes the need for galleries. It removes the needs for quite a few things, because you are essentially allowing for this permissionless place, and with no intermediary, that gives users much more power, and ultimately they own their digital assets. This is probably something that will be stressed constantly throughout even this conference, or anytime you speak with anyone in crypto that really believes in decentralization. and what blockchain overall means and cryptocurrency means to that ideal. And it definitely is a huge innovation that continues to express why blockchain, Web3, and all these tenets that come along with it benefit users, give them greater exposure to different financial services, and to be their own businesses and become traders of different types of assets, and not simply have to rely on someone else to be able to facilitate all that. But I appreciate your time. Thank you. And I hope that this was very informative. And, I'm on Discord or Twitter. My Twitter is Amir Gamble. Definitely, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me or on Discord, and happy to answer any other questions you might have. Thank you.